The reality is that the stigma of abortion will always be one of our most powerful weapons, and it is one we need to deploy every chance we get.
Society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. I do not join in the belief that the African is our equal in brain or in heart.
We are paying for and even submitting to the dictates of an ever-increasing, unceasingly spawning class of human beings who never should have been born at all.
The laws of nature require the obliteration of the unfit.
The best way to hate a nigger is to hate him before he is born.
American eugenicists were routinely praising Hitler and holding up the Nazi eugenics program as a model for the United States to copy.
Non-white races must be excluded from America. The red and black races, if left to themselves, revert to a savage or semi-savage state in a short time. The only way possible of decreasing Negro population is by means of controlling fertility. Birth control facilities could be extended relatively more to Negroes than to whites, since Negroes are more concentrated in the lower income and education classes.
We hope that the restraint of population growth can come about through voluntary means. But if it does not, involuntary methods will be used.
There should be national sterilization for certain dysgenic types of our population who are being encouraged to breed and would die out were the government not feeding them.
If this movement continues, we soon may be accused of fighting poverty by eliminating the poor and overcoming hunger by removing the hungry.
For all their failures, what the eugenics movement had accomplished was to lay the foundation for the next phase of their plan. And this is where they would find the success that they had been chasing for over 100 years.
Welcome back. Tell you, there's lots of interesting things going on around the country. One of them is down in Louisiana. We're seeing a situation there that we're seeing all over the United States, where laws that are passed to regulate abortion clinics are situations where they will tell abortion clinics that they have to start meeting the same laws that have been in place for other medical facilities forever. Right. They just don't enforce them against abortion clinics. Joining us from Baton Rouge, do you know what Baton Rouge means?
No.
Red stick.
Seriously?
Red stick, that's what that means. I just know that, I'm smart. Okay, joining us from Red Stick, Louisiana. Isn't that right, Richard?
That's right.
That's right. Richard Mahoney, who's a longtime pro-life activist I've known for many years. And thank you for joining us, Richard.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, tell us what's happening down there, because this is another one of these outrages. Richard, several years ago, we went through a situation with the Delta Women's Center where they killed 2 women in a period of about 4 or 5 months, both in the exact same way, and the state did nothing about it. Have they cleaned up their act since then?
No, and let me give you, for the listeners, just a 1-minute rundown. We've been fighting the Delta Clinic chain for 30 years. In 1986, 1988, Tommy Watson, the Attorney General, seized the clinic because they were dispensing narcotics illegally. We came in and bought one of their murder mills in 1994, and now it's the American Holocaust Memorial. Well, we went into looking at the rest of his chain, and we found unbelievable documents of crime. And I sent you those lists, and we can go over that some other time. But what I want to get to today is in 1999, several women were nearly killed at one of the abortion clinics. And the workers let WAFB in to the abortion clinic and showed all the crimes they were doing, which we had already told the DHH, but they totally ignored us. Well, because of the 1-hour documentary, Governor Foster at the time declared an emergency executive order to the DHH to go in and inspect the clinic, which led to the suspension of the Dr. James Whitmore and Dr. Eileen White O'Neill's licenses and closure of the clinic. But what was interesting about that was, at that time, our now Governor Jindal was the head of one of the departments of DHH. Well, now Governor Jindal is our governor, and he's no longer with DHH. But we showed 300 documented HIPAA violations to the DHH, and they went and did their own investigation and found out everything we're saying was true. However, the clinic's still open. We're talking about 7 felonies. We're talking about bringing minors off across state lines to the abortion clinic to have abortions. We're talking about illegal drugs. We're talking about ignoring HIPAA. We're talking about ignoring the mandated law that they have to be ambulatory surgical clinics. And they have on their form, which each victim signs, I understand that Delta Clinic of Baton Rouge is not licensed to practice medicine and can neither render me any medical treatment or any medical advice. Yet they're supposed to be ambulatory surgical units.
And have you guys approached Jindal's office about this?
I talked to him personally. He said,
what are they saying?
He said, send the information to me. We did. We sent it to DHH. DHH did investigation and said everything you gave us and everything you said is true. I would be in jail right now. I work in the medical field. If I have one HIPAA violation, it's $250,000 fine on my license.
Right.
They have hundreds. They threw out crimes. These doctors at the Delta made a prefab form with X's in it. I showed you that form. And it all X's. Then they throw away all the documents of all the injuries they've done to women, and not one report to the DHH of complications from abortion. It's all X, unknown reason for abortion, and no complications on that form, if you noticed. Right. The doctor signs the form before he even sees the patient, so just they can put a number on it and send it to DHH. This is medical fraud practice, endangering the public health. Governor Foster saw that same thing in 99 and 2000. He went in and sent an emergency executive order to close that abortion clinic.
Well, let me tell you, Richard, I appreciate your following this stuff and bringing it to our attention, but I think something else is at play here.
Okay.
Jindal is often mentioned as a potential presidential nominee in 2012. And I think what he's doing here is his claim to be pro-life is being exposed for what it is, for one thing. But I think that what he's doing here is he's setting himself up for that nomination so that he doesn't appear as some sort of right-wing anti-abortion zealot, or that's the way they'll point.
Well, I know him, and I know him personally as a good Catholic and a good pro-life and a good Christian. But here's the problem: the difference between Governor Jindal and Governor Foster. Governor Foster didn't tolerate this kind of insanity. Where Governor Jindal, he says he goes down the bureaucratic response. He basically says, "Well, let my people take care of it," and they're not.
Right.
Governor Foster wouldn't handle that. If his people didn't take care of it, he'd fire him and get the job done himself. We don't have a fighter in Governor Jindal. Now, I'm hoping that we have people call his office and say, listen, 30 years of endangering the public health, that's enough.
Okay, listen, we're going to put up on the screen the numbers that you gave me for people, and they don't have to be in Louisiana. They could be anywhere.
Right.
To call these people and tell them that something's got to be done about this.
Yes, tell them we have documented 24 years of endangering the public health. We've been fighting this clinic, this chain of abortion clinics for 30 years. 5 of them have been closed down. But the fact that they were allowed to reopen other places and given licenses by the DHH is incredulous. I mean, Mark, we could spend 8 hours on a show showing all of the unbelievable crimes these people have done.
Now, the question
it would make your hair curl. This is just one chain.
Wouldn't make my hair curl.
One person, Brinkley.
Johnny has a real quick question.
I was noticing, Richard, with some information you sent to Mark, that a local TV actually did a documentary on it, and yet the Department of Health and Hospitals are still not acting on it after seeing even this documentary.
Oh, actually, once that documentary was done, they got up and said, we will never allow this to happen in Louisiana again, because they had egg on their face. They were so embarrassed that they weren't doing their job. The Governor Foster said this is incredulous that people can get away with this just because they're abortionists. The abortion industry sued Governor Foster. It went to court. It was in court for years. They actually sued him for protecting the public health.
It's amazing.
And that's why, it's one of the reasons that the Governor Bobby Jindal and the DHH is moving so slow. I guess they worried about, Governor Foster would take on anybody.
Yeah.
You want to sue me? Come on, we'll take you on. Whereas these guys are worried about these murderers who have done crimes. They're so incredulous. And
Richard,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're about out of time. We can hear you getting wound up back there.
Yeah, listen, you wouldn't believe the stuff we see.
I know.
And I know because, you know, you have it on Line 5, you have it in all your documentaries, but that one clinic, that one person, Leroy T. Brinkley, has been able to come into Louisiana with a chain of abortion clinics and do felony upon felony for 30 years.
Right.
And get away with it.
Well,
and not only that, document it on his own forms that he throws out.
Right.
HIPAA violations.
Well, Richard, you stay after it, keep us informed, and we'll keep the public informed. We're going to put those numbers up on the screen so people can call and
I'd like them
encourage
to tell,
these guys.
I'd like them to tell both Governor Jindal and the Department of Health and Housing only one thing. 24 years of endangering the public health is enough.
Yeah, that's right.
Stop it. Put them in jail.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fine them.
Jill.
Yeah, I've noticed on this topic of medical records a big discrepancy between how the pro-aborts are treated and how pro-lifers are treated. You know, Alan mentioned Hodari, late-term abortionist in Michigan, in his newscast. Right. Just last year, dumpster divers found, pro-life dumpster divers found not only fetal remains in his abortion clinic.
Medical records.
They found medical records with people's names on them, and they faxed them to me. I could have put them on my blog with these women's names on them, and I blacked them out. Right. And he had nothing done to him. But then you go to Phil Klein, who wanted to collect medical records redacted.
Anonymous, yes.
And all hell broke loose as far as he was concerned. Same thing in Oklahoma now. They passed a law to try and allow just information about why women are aborting online with no names, and a judge just struck that law down too.
It's unbelievable. It is absolutely.
No, you can't even fathom. Mark, have me out some other time, and when you see what they've had allowed, that we would go to jail that day. There wouldn't be any investigation.
That's right. That's exactly right.
We would go to jail that day.
Well, thanks for joining us, Richard.
Well, God bless y'all, and keep up the fight.
We'll appreciate it, sir.
Bye-bye.
Are these people on payroll? The abortion payroll?
I don't know. I've got some theories about it, but, you know.
Well, and people ought to know that, and of course you wrote about this in Line 5, this happens across the country.
Absolutely.
We're fighting a
This is the
sleazy...
norm.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a good abortion clinic.
Right.
This is the way they all
This
are.
is the norm. This is the way these people operate.
Didn't Tiller threaten to put women's names, make them public when he was gone after?
He said on his website, those who contact us will be contacted in the future for fundraising purposes.
Fundraising. They're going to give them to fundraising companies.
And then, of course, that name then, if they gave money, would be distributed on his political action committee information sheet.
Which is a public record.
Form, which is a public record.
Right. It's unbelievable, the stuff these people get away with. It's maddening is what it is. It's totally maddening. Well, on the good news section, Ma'afa 21 continues to just explode. We're seeing stuff all over the country. Just last night on ABC News, it was mentioned. They didn't mention it by name, unfortunately. Diane Sawyer on the news talking about what she called an undercover documentary that's fueling this situation down in Georgia.
You and Lila mixed up.
Yeah.